بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوان الأنصار اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علمك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we are able to have our session on Islamic belief system. This is about Unit 5, and we continue our discussion about the character of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I would like also to congratulate you for birth anniversary of Imam Jawad alayhi salam, and I hope inshallah because of this blessing occasion Allah would grant you your hajat and solve problems and resolve complications in your life. One of the things that we find about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was that he was very persistent, and at the same time that he was very humble and gentle person, but he was also very active and persistent person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Prophet Muhammad in chapter 11 verse 112, فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ, be persistent as you have been asked, as you have been commanded. So all the Quraysh people, leaders, soldiers, their clever people, they made plots to stop him, sometimes by bringing temptation, sometimes by threat, sometimes by putting pressure on himself, his followers, torturing new Muslims, killing them, sometimes even physically attacking and hurting Prophet, like the story that you know when the Prophet went to Ta'if and they asked some of the children to throw stones at the Prophet. And the Prophet took a kind of refuge by going to near a garden and was sitting under the shadow of a tree and started talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are pleased with me, that is sufficient for me. Sometimes they called him magician, sometimes they called him mad. Sometimes they threw ashes on his head, to the extent that he said, Ma udhiya nabiyyun mithla ma udhit. But he never stopped. Even when they went to Abu Talib alayhi salam and asked him to talk to your nephew and tell him, if you want money, position, women, we give him everything. Just ask him not to talk about one God and not to talk against idols. And Rasulullah said, if they put sun in one hand and moon in my other hand, I'm not going to stop. So he was very persistent. Another thing is he was very much trustworthy. And I think we talked about this, that not only after Islam, before Islam, he was known to be very trustworthy. Even before marrying to Lady Khadija knew of Rasulullah's trustworthiness and asked him to be in charge of her trade, caravan. All people used to trust him. And 13 years after Islam, still people of Mecca used to leave their valuables with the Prophet to be safe. Another thing is, the Prophet was very much devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He loved ibadah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is quoted as saying, best people are those who love ibadah. They love worshipping, they love praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They love to be alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His prayers, whether with wajibat, nawafil, tawaf, fasting, i'tikaf. In the months of Ramadan, the last 10 days and nights, he used to do i'tikaf in masjid, not only 3 days. Last 10 days, he was asking not to have any kind of bed or mattress. He was just doing ibadah, maybe a little while sitting, doing a little nap, but he was enjoying his ibadah. But this was not by pressurizing himself, We don't recommend people to pressurize themselves to do ibadah. But he loved. He was doing this naturally. When you love something, it's different. If for example, love reading, studying, you don't become tired. But if you force yourself, then sometimes you become very tired, and even maybe your health will become in trouble. He was not even, although he was not sleeping long hours, he was still dividing these little hours, limited hours, in the way that he was sleeping, waking up, doing some tahajjud, then sleeping, then waking up and doing some tahajjud. So he was dividing his night. Then we have a beautiful story that Rasulullah one night was in the house of Lady Salama. When we say house, you should not think, they had, like big house. Maybe I could say room. So, she says, in the middle of night, I didn't find the Prophet. I saw the Prophet in a dark corner, has raised his his hands towards the sky, and is crying and asking Allah not to take from him his blessings, not to make his enemies happy, and not to put him to the troubles and calamities that he has saved him from, and not to leave him to himself even for an eye blink. لا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين أبدا. Even Rasulullah is worried if Allah leaves him to himself. Actually, they are more worried than us. When you go higher, you would understand your need for Allah more. So Rasulullah is saying to Allah, please don't let me to myself, don't leave me to myself, don't leave me alone, even for a second, an eye blink, tarfat aynan abada. She says, I told Rasulullah, may my father and mother be your ransom. You are forgiven by Allah. Because Allah says, إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا لَكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. Why you are worried? You are forgiven. Rasulullah said, no one is free from need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah left Yunus ala nabina wa salam 1 second to himself, and then he made something which was not supposed. I'm not saying he committed a sin, but he was not, as a person in that caliber should not have done that. And as a result, he was imprisoned in the stomach of the whale. In the months of Ramadan, he used to free all his slaves. Free all of them. When he was standing for prayer, such a strong person who is physically, emotionally, spiritually, from everything, he's strong. But when he was standing for prayer, his body was shivering, he was, shaken, because of understanding the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he was saying his prayer alone, he was prolonging ruku and sujood. But when he was leading jama'ah, he was making it very simple and not too long, When he was giving instruction to one of his companions who was going to lead prayer, he said, whenever you say your prayer with people, means you are leading prayer, after hamd, recite a short surah and don't prolong your prayer. He had very simple life. He never lived like kings or emperors. And when he was sitting with his companions, he was sitting normally in circle. So a person went to Medina, he wanted to see the Prophet. When he looked at people, he couldn't realize who was the Prophet. Can you imagine? His appearance was like other people. No one could say he is Prophet because he is sitting on a throne or in a big sofa, or there are few guards standing next to him, or his dress is luxurious and very expensive. No. From physics, you could not understand who is Prophet. Yes, maybe if he speaks, maybe look at his face, that's different. But not by looking at the arrangements. Arrangements were simple. He was very careful about being tidy. Not only a spiritual purity, even physical purity. To be tidy, to be clean, to be organized. And it is said that other than making wuzu, most of the days he used to have like bath and shower, and he used to also use perfume, musk and amber. He was very much committed to brush the teeth, and he was saying to his companions that never come to the meeting for your brothers and sisters while your teeth are not washed. His dress was always clean. Before and after food was washing his hand and mouth. He was avoiding vegetables which had bad fragrance, bad smell. When you come to public, you should be careful. He used to have comb, scissor, mirror, brush always with him when he was traveling. He used to say to people, before night comes, remove the rubbish from your home. Don't keep rubbish overnight in your home. He had also, he gave instructions about not to leave dishes and containers unwashed. And if for any reason the dishes were not washed overnight, he was saying that you must cover them. When it was about his personal life, he was very gentle and lenient. He was able to forgive people, even forgive people who had hurt him, who had wronged him. Even he forgave people who wronged, for example, his family members, if it was his authority. But he was not lenient when it comes to principles. So, when Muslims, went to Mecca and they had conquered Mecca, there was a person, a lady, who had committed theft. And it was proved that she was guilty. And some people said, she comes from a noble family, a very rich and noble family. Please forgive her. But Rasulullah said, this is actually the reason for damage and destruction of previous nations. When poor people, unknown people committed a crime, they punished them. When rich people and people from noble families, they did something right, they didn't punish them. This is not right. So if she has committed the theft and it's proved, we should apply the ruling. We should not take exception, say, because she's from a rich family. In family, he was very kind. He was not a harsh person, angry person at all, which was not very common at that time. Sometimes some of family members, some wives or other people, used to have very bad language. They were annoying the Prophet. They were, using things which could, break the heart, cause injury to your heart. But Rasulullah was not reacting. Rasulullah used to say to people that you should be very considerate with your wife, your daughters, your sisters, with women in general. If there is husband and wife, he used to say a man should not only consider bad characteristics of his wife and therefore leave her. Because if she has bad characteristics, she has also good characteristics. You should not forget all the positive points and just say she has this problem. He was very kind with his children, used to ask them to sit on his lap, playing with them, carrying them on his shoulder. He used to kiss them. Once, when he kissed Imam Hassan alayhi salam, a man who was one of the people from rich families said, I have 2 sons and I have never kissed them. And Rasulullah said, Man la yarham, la yurham. In a hadith, Rasulullah said, the best mu'mineen are those who are better in dealing with their families. Those who are more kind and affectionate with their family. And I am the kindest with my family. Then we have discussion here about how he encouraged Muslims to be very kind to their slaves, to give them from their own food, to give them from their own dress. And he was saying one of the best jobs is to sell slaves and buy slaves, this type of things. And Islam little by little managed to eradicate slavery. He was very much against zulm. Even when he was a young man, with some of his friends, they formed a treaty. It's known as Helful Fudul. This was a treaty of some young men of Mecca because they saw a stranger, someone who was not from Mecca, was mistreated. His right was denied. So they said, we promise that we support the people who are oppressed. We support the people who come to Mecca, and people here don't fulfill justice towards them. Even many years, many decades after that, Rasulullah said, I don't want that treaty to be broken, and even today I am happy to take part in this treaty. He was very unhappy with being lazy and not productive, and he used to take refuge with God with respect to being lazy and not active and not energized to work. He used to say, Ibadah has 70 parts. The best part is to earn halal. So, Islam brings spirituality to life. So you shouldn't think that, no, Ibadah is just to pray and fast. Yes, prayer and fasting is very important, but that's like the guideline for the rest of the life. He used to emphasize that whatever you do, no matter what you do, whatever you do, you should do it properly. When Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, died, Rasulullah himself undertook putting him in the grave. When he was put in the grave, Rasulullah, with his own hands, tried to fix the stones and the bricks. And some people were surprised. We are not going to use this as a room, as a building. This is the grave, and then lots of soil will be put on this. But Rasulullah said, لَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ عَبْدًا إِذَا عَمِلَ شَيْئًا أَوْ فَعَلَ شَيْئًا أَتْقَنَهُ. Allah loves when a servant does something, does it properly. No matter you are making grave or home or palace or hospital, whatever you are making, make it properly. If you are fixing a car, if you are, for example, repairman, fix it properly. No matter, for example, you are fixing the car of the king, or you are fixing the car of someone who with difficulty has to pay the charge. You have to fix it properly. Sometimes some garage, you take your car, and after they fix it, they give you also few, screws. They say these are, remaining from your car. They don't know what has happened, So, everything has to be done properly. You are cooking, cook it properly. Sometimes you see a person is cooking and has made no progress. Read more how you can, for example, reduce oil, how can you make it more healthy, more delicious. improve. Of course, maybe some people are doing already good, but I think there is always a way to improve. I want to give lecture, I should also try to improve. So, Rasulullah said, everything we do, we should do it properly. Another thing is about a summary of his mission. Amir al-Mu'minin has a beautiful description of the mission of the Prophet. Of course, he has different things about this in Nahj al-Balagha, but one is this. He says, Rasulullah was tabibun dawwarun bitibbih. Rasulullah was a physician. You know, in Islam, the science of medicine is very much, praised. Medicine is very good. And, sometimes we say, tibbul adyan wa tibbul abdan. We have two medicine. Medicine for body, medicine for soul, religion. So, he was a physician, but not physician for normal illness. Physician for the difficult illnesses of the soul. But what was very interesting was, he was not sitting in a place, he didn't have a surgery that says, okay, ill people can come to me and I will charge them, and then I look at them, examine them and give them prescription. No. He was looking everywhere for someone to help. Dawwarun bitibbih. There are physicians who go around, but then they charge you more. Because I have come to you. But Rasulullah was not charging. Going everywhere with his equipments ready. Amir al-Mu'minin says after this, he had his equipment ready and he was putting them where there was need. When there was hayra, when there was jahala, confusion, ignorance. And he was treating heart, he was treating ears, eyes, which were ill. When heart is ill, cannot understand or show love to the truth. When ear is ill, cannot listen to the truth. Eye cannot believe in what is seen. So, he was a doctor. He was a teacher. Rasulullah said, بِالتَّعْلِيمِ أُرْسِلْتُ. Allah has sent me as a teacher. So, as a summary, we can say, he tried to revive Tawheed. Ibrahim ala nabiyina wa alihi wa alayhi salam was a champion of Tawheed. He established Hajj under instruction of Allah as a practice and reminder for Tawheed. He rebuilt, restored Kaaba as a symbol for Tawheed. But unfortunately, after him, many superstitious ideas got into Hajj, into Tawaf. Even they started, can you imagine how human beings, how we shouldn't think we are different. How we can get confused. Rasulullah, Ibrahim, Rasul of God, made Kaaba under construction of Allah, instruction of Allah. This construction was to be a place for Tawheed. Then what they did, they said, let's keep our idols inside Kaaba. They had 365 or something like that, maybe equal to the number of the days, maybe Qamar is 355. Anyway, some 300 idols inside Kaaba. So quite opposite to the purpose. It's like, for example, you make a place very hygienic, Then people say, oh, it's very hygienic, let's keep germs here so that they don't die. We make a masjid, people say, let's dance in the masjid. So, human beings can reach that point. You know what Yazid used to do on top of Kaaba, I don't want to mention. So, we can sometimes take things quite opposite to the direction. So, we have to be very careful. So, Rasulullah revived Tawheed. He called people to go back to the tradition of Ibrahim, to the Sunnah of Ibrahim. But he also tried to bring Tawheed to the life of people, not just as a kind of, doctrine, a kind of belief. No, life around Tawheed. But not only personal life, social life. Then in Medina, he started establishing a kind of a state based on Tawheed. A little state which gradually grew. Rasulullah very much encouraged people to think and learn. And he fought against ignorance and superstitious ideas. No matter what superstitious ideas were there, even if sometimes some people thought in a superstitious way about greatness of the Prophet because after his son died, for example, there was picture of, there was a eclipse. They said, oh, this is the sign of sun or moon, mourning. Rasulullah said no. He didn't want superstitious ideas to be used even for supposedly promoting religion or tabligh. No, how can you promote religion with superstitious ideas, with cheating, with dishonesty? It's impossible. Truth cannot be promoted by means of falsehood. Never religion can progress by deceiving. Then they managed to make a new culture, a new civilization. Muslims soon became pioneers in many different sciences and disciplines, plus they created some of the sciences. He raised the position of women. He raised the position of family. He gave equality to black, white, red, any kind of yellow ethnicity, whatever is the skin color, whatever is your ethnicity, doesn't matter. Inna akramakum indallah atqakum. Okay. After this, we go to the discussion about Quran as the miracle of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which of course we have also a parallel course of that, but according to the book is Quran. Inshallah, we'll leave it for the next session. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.